Welcome to Masculine Journey. We are glad to have you with us today. We have a special day today, don't we, Robbie? We're not in studio, I guess I should say.
I mean, how fun. We get to eat pork and then record.
Right. Yeah, and if you guys don't know Pastor Jim, if you haven't met Pastor Jim, we're at his church. That's why we're calling him Pastor Jim. But if you don't know Jim, we've talked about it. Jim is a really big man.
He is.
And he must have something going on because he missed all the food.
6'8" tall, I understand, in his heyday, and I don't even want to know how much. Yeah, there's a lot of pork.
Yeah,
that took to get there. Yeah.
Yeah, we're very grateful to be here, and we're going to continue today the series on surviving Christmas. If you've missed some of that, Robbie, can you tell them a little bit about what we've covered so far?
Yeah. Well, last week we talked about how to survive. Right, family changes. Like if you've experienced the loss of a mother, like you and I did last year, or a divorce, or those kind of things at the holiday. How do you survive that when Christmas comes and that's going on in your life? But the week before that, we talked about.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank too. Andy, do you remember what it was?
Were we on Christmas then, or was it?
Yeah, we had surviving Christmas. It was the first week.
Parenting.
Yes. Oh, yeah. After my week this week, I thought
you should have had that aced, Sam.
Yeah.
But surviving Christmas as a parent. But this week, I've been waiting for this for like 3 weeks. I'm very excited about it. Surviving Christmas.
Surviving Santa.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what is that? You know, that's a interesting question as a Christian. You hear so many different takes on it. You know, is it okay to tell your kids there's a Santa? Is it not okay? What is it with Santa, and what are some of those customs? And there's just a whole lot of stuff right there, Sam.
There is, and is that necessarily, are they good lessons that kids learn? Are they bad lessons that kids learn? You know, learn of Santa's love, you know, how does that relate to Christianity? All sorts of things that kind of tie in there, but at some level, you have to decide, you know, how are you going to survive Santa through the holiday season.
And you might imagine that we have a clip along those lines, right, Andy?
Yeah, we have clips for everything.
We have a clip.
We're covered on clips.
You know, that classic movie that I love to watch every year, it's the Santa Claus, because there was that little thing in the bottom of the contract. And, you know, that kind of sets the stage with what is the deal with Santa. And so let's hear what Scott Calvin thought.
Dad, I heard a clatter.
Somebody's on the roof.
Maybe it's Santa.
Not now, Charlie.
This Christmas, Scott Calvin's getting into the spirit the only way he can.
Hey, you!
By accident.
If something should happen to me, put on my suit. The reindeer will know what to do.
It is Santa. You killed him.
Did not.
Check out Santa's sleigh.
When you put on the suit, you fell subject to the Santa Claus.
The Santa Claus? What does that mean?
It means you put on the suit, you're the big guy.
Ha! Calvin, your weight. What happened? Beastie. What, you put on a little weight? Does this look like a little weight to you?
This is our perpetrator. This one's not going to be easy to find.
Won't the bright red suit and beard give him away?
Who's down there?
Johnny, naughty. Gary, nice. Veronica, very nice.
The Santa Claus.
You're a 1,200-year-old elf?
You look pretty good for your age.
Thanks, but I'm seeing someone in wrapping.
That line as Santa Claus was coming to town there, you know, Billy nice, Veronica very nice. There's a lot of danger in that Santa Claus is coming to town theology.
Yeah, you better watch out, right?
You better watch out, yeah. The whole naughty nice list, you know, I think that's one that, you know, kids are very familiar with. I remember one time when the boys were young and Caleb was acting up. He must have been about 5 or 6. My wife decided it'd be a good idea to call Santa. and she called my brother-in-law at the time, and he was Santa. You know, told Caleb to be good. You know, he was terrified for like the next week, you know, because he actually heard Santa on the phone. You know,
I'm thinking the naughty list is fake news, personally. I think it's fake news because you know my story about when I was a kid and the BB gun, and I was out in the woods with my friends, and one of my friends went to relieve himself. And as I was looking through the woods, I saw these targets appear. I couldn't resist. That should have got me on the naughty list, Sam, because not only did I shoot him, and he gave the blood-curdling scream all the time, but then I took the little neighbor kid who was about 4 and pulled him in front of me as a human shield when he returned fire, and he got pinned right between the eyes, and, I got my BB gun taken away, but Santa didn't bring me coal in my stocking that year, nor did I get a Switch. And so I personally believe the naughty list is fake news.
Yeah, I think that we have used it to at least I've used it at times to try to kind of help control my kids.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much danger in that whole philosophy, right, of that naughty list, because there's none of us that are ever going to make the good list at the end of the day. Set out every morning to try to do the right things and always do the best thing and be Christ-like and all the things you're supposed to do. But I've yet to make it.
Right, yep. It's pretty black and white, isn't it?
Yeah.
Doesn't allow for a lot of grace.
Now, Wayne, you've probably had several days you've made it all the way through.
Perfect, yeah. It's just all the way through, not a problem at all. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, for me, like, the thing that stands out the most is whenever I do miss the mark, right, is that voice that comes immediately afterwards. I can't believe you did that. You're a horrible person. I can't believe that you missed it like that. Definitely not the voice of a loving father.
Yeah, it's definitely a voice you're hearing, but it's not the voice of God. And,
Absolutely.
and to clarify kind of what we're going to talk a little bit about today is we're not going to talk about whether you should tell your kids they're Santa, not tell your kids that they're Santa, and how do you reconcile that in a Christian household. That you can read a book on that. You can go do some other things, or we'll do a show on it another time. But we're going to talk about this whole Santa Claus philosophy.
Right. And John Lynch, you turned me on to this clip, some time ago. And it just really opened up my eyes to something that I had no clue that I'd bought into since I was a little kid. But
yeah, we'll play it here in a second. John Lynch is a pastor out in Phoenix, Arizona.
Not the football player.
Not the football player. Right. Different John Lynch.
Right.
He's got some great YouTube videos. This is actually from one of his YouTube videos where he spoke to the Navigators. Very, very well done. But when I hear him talk about the Santa Claus philosophy, and let's go ahead and listen to that clip.
As early as we can remember, we have performed for acceptance. If I'm good enough, if I'm talented, diligent, beautiful, together enough, right, correct enough, I will be loved and accepted and blessed and happy. And if not, I will be rejected and receive a lousy life. You know what it is? It's the Santa Claus is coming to town theology. You see, we created Santa Claus because we couldn't handle God. Truth is, we can't handle Santa Claus. Oh, you better watch out, better not cry, better not pout. I'm telling you why Santa Claus is coming to town. He's making a list, checking it twice, maybe 3 times. You're going to find out who's naughty or nice. Santa Claus is coming to town. Now, he knows when you've been sleeping, which is wrong in my book. Right out of the chute. That is not acceptable. I don't care who you are. You don't be watching me. Wake up in the middle of the night. Santa, what are you doing in here? Get out of my bedroom. There's no business. I don't care if you're jolly and sassy. Get out. He knows when you've been sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows when you've been bad or good, for crying out loud. So be good for goodness sake. There it is. The culture created it. Figure that out. Get it. Grab hold of it. Let that permeate your life, and we sing it over and over because we believe it. There is someone watching, and your value is on how much you do right and how little you do wrong, and he's constantly writing down the wrong that you've done for future reference to bring up again to you. And if you're naughty, no soup for you, only coal. And he's going to find you out. Oh, and this omniscient, controlling legalist, he's coming to town. So you better watch out. You better fear this guy. You better stop your crying and sniveling. You better not pout. You better put on a good face. You better act like you're somebody different than who you actually happen to be. No matter how you feel, you better put on a good show. So doggone it, just be better than who you are, for goodness sake.
When you listen to that, it's funny. John's a very funny speaker, but he's also has a way of just opening your eyes to some things. And just really, when I heard that for the first time, I thought, not about Santa, obviously, but wow, what a dangerous way to think.
Right, because we put God in that spot.
Exactly.
We do.
In our heart, thinking, he's watching me, and the judgment's coming, and, all that is, and it's an interesting place to find yourself because you think I've got to perform in order to get acceptance.
Well, and there's stories in the Bible that, you can take, somewhat out of context or whatever that would illustrate that.
Yeah.
The Ark of the Covenant's moving along and it starts to fall and somebody reaches out to grab it.
Crispy
Right.
critter.
Yeah,
Yep,
he's gone. He's strike dead. And you think, wow, that's God? Yeah, and obviously there's more to that story, and we're not going to talk about that today, but the whole philosophy is a vengeful, overbearing, watching God
Wrathful.
that is just waiting on you to mess up. Right? And he's going to smack you down, and life's going to be horrible. I remember being a teenager. I'd been saved, had been a Christian now for probably 5-6 years, and it's going to sound incredibly stupid, but as a teenager, you don't have a brain that really works. And, I was thinking, I can say that, I have teenagers. We were supposed to have some big volleyball thing with another youth group, and it started raining, and I was mad, and I was thinking, wow, thanks God. And it was all about because there were pretty girls at the other church, and I wanted to meet them. But, I got mad, and I was angry at God, and I was, telling him how angry I was with him. Well, it cleared up, and a little bit later that day, I was out doing some chores that my family had been on me about to do, my mom and dad, and I was burning some brush, using some gasoline to burn some brush, and got in a position that was not good. Fire took off. I got burnt pretty bad.
It never happens with gas, right?
Yeah, gas. Yeah, you got to use gas, but no, you don't use gas. But in my mind, that became, I argued with God, and now I'm in the hospital.
You're punished.
Right? And what a dangerous place that was. And that was that way for many, many years until God really, we talked about here, God spoke to my heart at a boot camp. And stepped in and did some healing and did some love and did some things. And I got to see him for his heart, right? Should we fear God? Yes. Right? Fear of God is healthy.
Right.
Being afraid of God is something totally different.
Right.
And I love what John does later on in this video, but more in his book, True Faith. He talks about, do you see God, when you look at God, do you see God on the other side of your sin or on this side of your sin? And he talks about being in the room of good intentions, where I'm going to get God on my side. If I come to church enough, if I pray enough, if I read my Bible enough, then God's going to get on my side and everything's going to go good. It's a room of good intentions. I'm going to make myself do it. It's going to happen.
Right.
And that person tends to see God on the other side of their sin and trying to find a way to get over there, versus seeing God on this side of my sin with his arm around me saying, and this is John Lynch's line, not mine, gee, Robbie, that's a lot of sin. And we'll work on it together, Robbie. We're gonna go after this thing. But it's a matter of, will you trust God, or are you going to try to earn your way to that, which is going to, and that's the difference between the Santa Claus who's coming to town theology and I think grace.
Yeah, it is grace. I mean, for me, I was there for a lot of years, that same feeling and all. And when I started seeing him more as the father that he really is, I began to think, okay, he's the ultimate father. So I'm a father. And all I have to do is, my daughter, if she would do those continual things and she just couldn't get it right, at what point in time would I abandon her and say, no, that's not enough, or I don't want to hear you when you get it right, come on back here and talk to me? No, it's never going to be that way. So I'm a human. How much more is he going to love me in that right way to restore me and be by my side instead of holding out until I get it all right?
Yeah, for me, it actually finally clicked, like you said, at a boot camp. I spent some time with God, and I grew up with a father that wasn't quite so kind and loving. And when I missed the mark, he made sure to let me know. But God's grace and his mercy, that grace, that unmerited favor, the love that he has for us is unconditional. That I don't have to seek his approval. He already approves of me. He's already called me. He already loves me. He loves me because he loves me, because he loves me, because he loves me. So it was a really, really awesome experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking about, if the old adage, pros and cons, right? You start to make a list of pros and cons, and if the measurement really truly was on how good I can be or how much I can not mess up, wow, I'm done. I mean, because that con list is going to be incredibly, incredibly long, and I try hard, but we all fall short. And that's the amazing thing about God's grace. Mm-hmm. The sacrifice that God made on the cross, that He sent His Son to die for us, was not just for the sins of the moment, but the sins before, the sins now, the sins to come.
Right.
Right. Yeah, we have to have a repentant heart. We have to do all the things that's our part of it.
Right.
But we don't have to be good enough
right.
in any way to find His love. But we have an enemy that loves to tell us all the time we're on the naughty list.
Yeah. And I'll tell you this, we have a really creepy clip for you.
It is creepy.
I found this. This is a kid's movie, believe it or not. And it's all animated with Santa and all the characters, but the name of the movie is actually called The Naughty List. And
don't Google that.
Don't Google that.
Whoa.
But when you hear this, I mean, it's kind of gives you an idea of what kids, how they get that performance mentality.
I'm heading to the toy shop. How is the nice list coming?
Almost done, just checking it twice, sir.
Good. Right on schedule, as always, Tinsel. Oh, the list is quite long this year. It's more work for us, but I'll take it.
Absolutely. Although we have 4 days until Christmas, there's still plenty of time for children to go on the naughty list. We've instituted a real-time system that tracks report cards, bedtimes, and tantrums as they happen. I'm proud to say that Christmas 2.0 is online.
Oh, of course.
That's just creepy. Christmas 2.0, Wayne.
Yeah.
It's coming your way. And it's a scary thing because, how many years have I labored under that thought that I've got to earn my acceptance, my favor?
So how, guys, can you, what's some ways that you can know the work that God's doing in your life, right, as He's trying to do this healing, this restoration, the things that He's always active on in your life, versus that voice of the enemy that's trying to remind you, hey, you're on the naughty list, you're on the naughty list. What's some of the things that the enemy uses as, his tools in his toolkit that aren't in God's toolkit? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, for one, the condemnation.
Yeah.
If you feel that, wait a minute.
Yeah. Yep. Condemnation, shame.
Yep.
God's confronted me on things. Never once has God shamed me.
Right.
On anything. God doesn't do shame.
Yeah, I think I read something the other day that a lot of times we make that synonymous with guilt, and they're really different. Guilt is just that prompting that you've done something wrong. Shame is like, you dirty son of a gun, what are you doing? It's really the opposite of that, and one is going to drive you away from God, and one is going to pull you towards Him.
Right.
You can also take you into a place of loneliness. I mean, whenever you're the one who feels like you're the only one who's experienced this, he can segment you out and segregate you from other people.
Yeah, that isolation factor that the enemy tries to say, well, you're the only one that struggles with this, or you're only parent that faces this issue, or you should be well beyond this now, right, somehow in life, or you've been a Christian for how many years?
Right. Yeah.
All those kind of attacks that God's just trying to, or not God, the enemy's just trying to isolate you from God.
Right. And that's one of the things that, for me, the boot camps are that opportunity to get excited about having God confront you with something in one of those talks. But then we have the covenant of silence, where everybody has an opportunity to go out and get alone with God for usually 45 minutes, an hour, with a question that you feel, this is something I need to work on, with no condemnation, listening for God's voice to help you, because you feel Him on this side of your sin, working with you. Where can we go from here? What direction do you have for me, God? Or, and a lot of times, just affirmation.
Yeah, it's always amazing when you go out. When we have a boot camp, we do these talks, and we each take turns. God puts different talks on different people's hearts, for each boot camp, even though it's a similar topics. That we give guys a list of things to go out and kind of just ask God about. But the amazing thing is when God just steps in and does whatever God wants to do in the midst of it, and it may just be something simple as God reminding you that He loves you, in a way that you've never felt before. Maybe you didn't have a dad that ever said it, and that's the only thing God wants you to know is you have a dad that says it every day.
Yep.
Every day, every day, every day, right? And it's always amazing what He does. And so I'm going to do a little bit of a shameless promo here.
Go ahead.
It's actually not a shameless promo, but we're about a week away from Christmas, and
That's right.
and there's a perfect gift that you can give not one, but two men in your life, or if you're a man and you want to buy one for a friend, we're doing a BOGO. Robbie, so what's a BOGO?
It's a buy one, give one free. Yeah. So if you buy one boot camp at $199, then we're going to give you a second one for you to bring somebody else to help them get their heart back. It's a weekend, starts on a Thursday. And so from a Thursday night, all day Friday, all day Saturday, and Sunday morning is a lot of time to get some restoration, because so many men see life as they're going to go out there and do the battle, but like the Delta flight, they never bring the oxygen mask down to work on their own heart.
Right. Right. And so this boot camp this weekend is a vital time for men to get their hearts back. I think about all the gifts that God's given me in life, and He's given me some tremendous gifts, my family, my kids, all those things. But for me personally, and that made a difference even to them, the greatest was my heart.
Yeah.
Right? Giving me some things at my heart. And I can't even tell you how many boot camps I've been to anymore. It's well over in the 20s somewhere. Probably. And each one has been uniquely different from the standpoint of what God's done in my heart there and the gifts that He was giving, not just at Christmas, but all year long. Now, Wayne, I know you've been to several boot camps.
I have, and several of them I've actually brought other guys with me. So if anyone out there is thinking that they might come and might not think there may be someone that would come along, go ahead now and reach out and go ahead and do that. Go ahead and get the tickets now while you can, because there's almost always someone in your life that God will point out to encourage you to bring them to the boot camp.
But you had been through Teen Challenge.
I did.
And some other things. Can you kind of, there you were walking with Christ as you came into that, but it still impacted you. Can you share a little bit how that?
Absolutely. So the first two boot camps that I came to, I was still an addict. And God had spoke to me there. I think that's the root of kind of what the boot camp has been for me is it started that relationship. As you mentioned earlier in a talk that we had, that there are a lot of Christians who get saved and kind of stop there. They haven't been shown how you can actually have a relationship with God, that He wants to speak to you, that He wants to talk with you. And we get caught up in the doing so much. Think about Martha and Mary, whenever they came together, whenever Jesus came into town, Jesus came and Mary sat at His feet and she heard from the Master while Martha was busy about, cooking dinner. And, which was the greater thing there? If it starts with a relationship, it needs to start there. But as far as what I learned there, again, just that hearing from God that He actually wants to talk to me, that you can ask such a small question and He cares about that littlest of things to answer, just again to poke your heart a little bit, to say that I'm here, that I do love you, and that I have so much for you.
I guess, the ones that I've went to, I've been to probably 10 or 12. Even went to the one in Colorado this year, and that was really good. And I realized from that experience how much what you're getting is spot on with the content and the spirit that it started in Colorado. And I was quite frankly, I came back to these guys and said, you guys have replicated this. The credit, they'll quickly defer to God, though. But this is a message that a lot of men need to hear. There's things that they didn't have the father figure that they needed. It'll help you with those kinds of things. But this is something that you're going to get that will just deepen your walk. But just to talk a little bit more about how they've replicated it here, again, it's been a dependence on God. It's taken that framework that kind of the other boot camps come from, But there's also added flavor. There's things that I've seen in this boot camp that I didn't even see in Colorado. So it is unique, and it's custom to what God is wanting to do with his people in this area. So,
and to carry that, it's really, really fun to be here with these guys at the bridge and to be able to do this in this format and this way. In a boot camp, if you were there, we not only have the audio movie clips, we have them up on screen. And, Jesus talked in parables because stories speak to your heart. And that's where the action is. It's in your heart. And God comes after through those movie clips and those stories. And that one of the neat things about the boot camp is that you're in this intimate setting and God's coming after your heart with stories.
Absolutely. We began the show talking about, Santa and surviving Christmas and the whole philosophy of that naughty list. And what we're not talking about here is God calls us to go do serve and go do, but it's a whole mindset of I got to outweigh my naughty list stuff with good stuff because there's some, spiritual balance sheet in heaven that God's keeping on whether we're going to, find his favor or his love. That's the whole dangerous philosophy we're talking about. And at these boot camps, God may say, hey, I want you to go do this, but it's really, honestly, if he does that, it's going to be something that's awakening your heart. Yeah. It's something that you're going to find passion in. But of all the boot camps I've been to, God has not really only once said, hey, I want you to go do this, as far as like a ministry thing. It's all been gifts and restoration and ways to love my family better. And those types of gifts that he's given me along the way. Yeah, and then that spawns passions. It spawns things that makes you want to go do and give and serve. Right? So we're not saying that that's not right. It's just getting the sequence of events.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
Right? Giving out of the overflow of God's heart. Thank you for listening to the show this week. We'll be back. Hope you have a great Christmas. And then I don't know what we're talking about next time. Do you know, Robbie?
We're still surviving Christmas, but it's after surviving leftovers.
Oh, there you go. So we got to figure out what that looks like. Have a great week.